Listen to the women, hear our voices, study our lives and trust our choices. Sit with a woman as she labors to give birth. Take her hand and promise her you'll work her life on earth. And we'll listen to the women for a change. Listen to the women for a change. Listen to the women, hear our voices, study our lives and trust our choices. Listen to each woman as she tells of pain and hurt. Help her every way you can to work for peace on earth. And we'll listen to the women for a change. Listen to the women for a change.
Welcome to this memorial service for Yvonne Simmons. It's a daunting task ahead of us today to try to do some measure of justice to Yvonne's wild, courageous, unbelievably creative, loving, community-centered life. So there's a poem by Mary Oliver called The Summer's Day, and I'm going to read the second half of it because it reminds me so much of Yvonne. I don't know what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? As you can definitely see from the pictures of Yvonne that'll be running throughout today's memorial, Yvonne definitely knew how to fall down into the grass. One of her favorite songs was I Am a Wild Woman. And for Yvonne, that was her credo, her article of faith, and living her life like it was singular, wild, and precious was something she excelled at. Her incredible spontaneity, her penchant for interrupting conversations with songs, her playfulness were all qualities that could not be beaten out of her, though people tried to do just that at times, both literally and figuratively. Yvonne was nothing if not a survivor, but she was so much more. She was a role model, mentor, surrogate mother, and deeply loyal friend to so many. She was an artist, and life was her medium. But she also made jewelry and was a gifted fiber artist. Who else but Yvonne could look at a photo of a dog and knit it into a sweater without even using a pattern? Yvonne was a folk singer and an international peace activist who understood very personally the links between war and violence against women. She was a comedian, a world traveler, a videographer and producer with Flying Focus Video Collective. She was a founding member of Portland Peace and Justice Works, Portland Cop Watch. She was a counselor, an ordained mail order minister who presided over the marriages of dear friends, but also the occasional canine couple. Yvonne loved a good dog wedding, and it pains me that we never actually got around to holding the wedding that Yvonne often talked about of our dog Lucy, whom Yvonne rescued and brought to our door, and her beloved canine companion Cholito. I love life was Yvonne's often spoken mantra, and that love was hard fought for. Yvonne was born in 1946, when bombed out buildings were still very much a part of the landscape of London, where Yvonne grew up. She often spoke of how she grew up playing in those bombed out buildings, how as a small child she accompanied her mother to aid agencies when they had no food or money to buy it. And she talked about how her loving mother had been forced for a time to place her and her sister at a church-run children's home, where 7-year-old Yvonne first learned to dodge pedophiles. Yvonne was all about 13 years old when she ran away from home, fleeing sexual abuse, and found her first political mentors among Ban the Bomb proto-punk London street kids who looked out for her. Yvonne often said that it was in running for her life that she found it, and it was violence and sexual exploitation in London that drove Yvonne to flee the city. Yvonne eventually landed in the Italian resort town of Fregene, about 30 miles from Rome, where she sang at a piano bar and was often accompanied by her howling dog Blacchino. The bar was frequented by Fellini and other luminaries of the international film scene. And Yvonne had a great story about rejecting the advances of a young Richard Gere. Yvonne would go on to hitchhike across the Middle East, crew a sailboat across the Atlantic, accompanied, of course, by her navigator, Blackino. She arrived in Portland in the 1970s, where she married David Losh and formed an indelible friendship with her mother-in-law, Pat Hollingsworth. Yvonne and Pat became inseparable, and it was Pat who introduced Yvonne to the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, WILF. The two had organized together for decades. I have no doubt that Yvonne's work with WILF was critical in clarifying her own understanding of the indelible links between militarism and violence against women. Working to end both was an animating drive in Yvonne's life. She would go on to produce some 25 videos for the Flying Focus Video Collective that focused variously on militarism, poverty, and violence against women. She attended and documented international women's conferences. She organized against both the First and Second Gulf Wars, helping to organize some of the largest peace demonstrations in Portland's history. If Yvonne was sometimes on the stage and at the mic, even more frequently, she'd be there at the crack of dawn, helping to set up the stage, the canopies, and the table. Her commitment to ending war and violence against women led Yvonne to bring aid to women and children under siege in Sarajevo in the 1990s. Many of the women that she worked with had been systematically raped. Yvonne was honored for that work when she was named Woman of the Year by the Oregonian. When she was medically evacuated during her final trip there, she suffered brain damage. If her brain injury, called central pontine myelinosis, was a condition that people rarely recovered from. The same woman who dodged snipers and mortars in Sarajevo somehow managed to live a fairly normal life after she struggled to learn to walk and talk again. Yvonne's animating passion to end war and violence against women would lead her to bring the National Clothesline Project to Portland, where it was hosted by PSU's Women's Studies Department, and where Yvonne could be found on the park blocks holding a table where survivors of abuse decorated T-shirts that witnessed to their abuse and their abusers and affirmed their own strength and dignity. That same animating commitment led Yvonne to create and host a camp in Northeast Portland, where arts-based activities emphasized to the kids that hands are not for hurting. Yvonne was a perennial presence also at Pioneer Courthouse Square, standing vigil with Women in Black, and she was active also with Code Pink. Though Yvonne had no biological children of her own, she helped friends raise children and was a life-changing mentor to many, including myself and certainly Dan Handelman, who's up next to speak.
I am a member of a group, Peace and Justice Works, and I was there with Yvonne when we started this group in 1992. I met Yvonne in 1991 during the so-called Gulf War, and she was walking at the peace marches with her dog Mischief, who was wearing a T-shirt that said "Peace Dog" on it. You know, for those of you who don't know, in her later years, Yvonne developed dementia, and she was under the care of Emerson House, which was very, very kind to her. And the benefit of her having a memory loss is that I got to remind her a bunch of stories of her life, kind of some of which Desiree's touched on already, but that made it so that I had to tell her these stories over and over again. So now you get to hear the same thing I would tell Yvonne every time I went to visit her, to remind her about her life. And I think Desiree might have mentioned that at one point Yvonne sailed across the Atlantic, and she also at that piano bar in Italy, Yvonne told me that she had engaged in what she called a reverse striptease. She would put more clothes on every time the music changed up. So I thought that was hilarious. Very, very keeping with Yvonne's sense of humor. And as Desiree said, I reminded her how she would help women and children in other countries. She went to Yugoslavia, I think 7 times, and then to Peru. She helped children in poverty there who lived in a garbage dump. And she brought video back from those trips, some of which we used at Flying Focus to make shows that Desiree referenced. And you'll be seeing clips from some of those today. And one of the things, Desiree kind of briefly also mentioned one of Yvonne's amazing abilities is that she could walk down Sniper Alley and dodge the bullets. And even when she got this brain injury, the central pontine myelinosis, she was able to recover when the doctor said that nobody recovers from that. And she was, she did great for 10 full years and after that. And then we're not even 100% sure that dementia had anything to do with that brain injury. She just had this amazing, like Energizer Bunny, kept going no matter what. And the peace camps that Desiree talked about, not only did she do them here, she also taught kids in other countries, and she learned to sing songs in other languages. Like you're also going to see that a little bit later today. But she sang a song about an otter in the water and dancing the hokey cokey, and you'll see that too. And part of her mischievous side, I would remind her, is that like one Mother's Day, she and other people went. Oh, not wasn't Mother's Day; it was International Women's Day. They went to the MAX train, the light rail here in Portland, and added INE to the end of the name, so it was called Maxine for that day, to feminize it. Another thing, just her ability to get things done that you wouldn't think anybody could get done. Includes that she was able to get Cholito into this country. He was born on that garbage dump in Peru, and it must be amazing amount of paperwork to bring an animal in from another country, but she managed to do it. She in Yugoslavia, she brought shipping containers full of aid there for women and children, and she had to work with the military, the U.S. military, to make that happen. And she would tell, and these are all stories I used to tell Yvonne all the time. And she told the woman in the military, they were talking about whether or not gays should be allowed to be in the military, and she said, I don't think they should be in the military. And the woman said, I know you. You don't want anybody to be in the military. And Yvonne would laugh because that's exactly what she meant. For those of you who don't know, both their names, Yvonne and Pat, and several other members of the local WILF, are etched in the Walk of Heroines and in front of the Hoffman Hall at Portland State University. The first clip we're going to see is from one of the very first shows we produced at Flying Focus about the Clothesline Project that Desiree referenced. There's a song that I think is recorded with her and Mary Rose playing at the beginning, and then you'll hear her describe a little bit about the Clothesline Project.
How could anyone ever tell you that you're anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you that you're less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Hi, I'm Yvonne, and we're at Peninsula Park at the showing of the Clothesline display, which memorializes the violence against women. The T-shirts are hung on a clothesline, and women draw on them about the violence that has happened to them, whether it's battering, rape, or incest. And with me is Georgia, Mary Rose, Pat, and Fran Petchek. During this time, you will hear a gong being banged, and that will go every 20 seconds, saying a woman is being battered. Then every 3 minutes, a whistle is blown to say a woman is being raped. And every 20 minutes, a bell is rung. That says that a woman has been murdered.
WILF US has benefited over the decades from Yvonne's input. I first became aware of her through the music she did with Mary Rose, which was very much consistent with what WILF US works for. To provide just a little background, I don't want to take up too much time. WILF US is part of the international organization of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. We have what are called sections, which is to say WILF groups in approximately 40 countries around the world. In the US, we work on a lot of different issues, partly because the global situation to some extent is driven by US politics and US government action, so we have a lot of things to pay attention to in the United States. I had the pleasure of meeting Yvonne at one of our U.S. congresses that take place every 3 years, when the Clothesline Project was actually brought to the Congress itself to demonstrate for the members who were there how that worked. It became a nationwide initiative, and many cities in the U.S. undertook to have clothesline projects. I also was very impressed with her work in Sarajevo and the former Yugoslavia, where she gave us just terrifying descriptions of the way snipers in Sarajevo were picking off people seemingly at random in the city, and the resulting trauma for so many people, but particularly for women, many of whom were sexually assaulted. Finally, I am very enthusiastic about the power of songs and what I would call folk music to strengthen the political movements that many of us are so engaged in. Song can reach through to us on a different level and can keep us going strong by giving us empowered speech, something positive, an emotional connection. So Yvonne and Mary Rose together put together a number of wonderful songs that have been of value to our whole movement.
The story about the Clothesline Project reminds me that the person who created the Clothesline Project out in Massachusetts came out here one Women's Day, and Yvonne displayed that the clothesline in a park downtown and did another program for Flying Focus about that. So kind of on that note, one of the other things, Yvonne did travel a lot, and she went back to England to join women who are protesting the U.S. spy base there called Menwith Hill. She recorded a program early on about that spy base, and then went back again to visit the women's encampment near there. So what you're going to see is a clip from that second show, which was called Menwith Hill, which is why I accidentally used the wrong name.
Menwith Hill. It's not marked on any of the maps. It's the most secret United States base in Britain. It's the world's largest spy base, and it's getting bigger. It's the hub of the U.S. military planning in the Northern Hemisphere. The Menwith Hill spy base near Harrogate is run by the National Security Agency, NSA, of the United States. It employs around 1,200 staff, mainly American, who are ordered never to mention the NSA and to report all contacts with foreign nationals, and that's the Brits.
Not only Cassandra now.
Right, the latest news from the Women's Peace Camp at Menwith Hill is that we've been served with eviction notices under Section 77 of the new Criminal Justice Act. This empowers the North Yorkshire County Council to remove the vehicles and the property from the land. We don't think it applies to the removal of the women.
I think we're on to the Yvonne song, the Catbox Blues, which I think this is, again, Yvonne and Mary Rose. And I think it really, speaks well of Yvonne's, really amazing sense of humor. So.
First I must mention a lack of attention. Here I am wasting away, it's awful. Why did you get me if you don't pet me? 17 hours a day, I ask you, what is this crap? When I sit on your lap, I expect a devoted masseuse. I've got the nobody loves me, nobody feeds me, overflowing catbox blues. I have grown gaunt from deprivation and want, but cat food I don't deign to take, how gauche. But I could connive to completely revive when you've given me half of your steak done rare. I'll sit here and beg with my claws in your leg until you concede what I'm due. I've got the nobody loves me, nobody feeds me, Overflowin Catbox Blues. Hey, I don't deserve this lousy door service. I'm always on the wrong side, you know this. Growling and meowing, mewing and yowling works, but it hurts a cat's pride, so I'll just claw and I'll spray till the door rots away, and it gives me a hole to pass through. I've got the nobody loves me, nobody feeds me, overflowing Catbox Blues. Whenever I go for the bed or the sofa, you always shoo me away. How rude. You say I leave hairs on the fabric of chairs that offend your pristine derriere. Well now, if I can't repose where I want, I suppose I could throw up where you most like to snooze. I've got the nobody loves me, nobody feeds me, overflowing Catbox Blues. Well, you ought to know when a cat's got to go that you owe her a spotless commode. Let's hear it. Why should I squat on the same soggy spot right on top of 3 weeks worth of loads? Now really, if I were a grouch, I would piss on the couch, but instead I have pissed in your shoe. I've got the nobody loves me, nobody feeds me, overflowing Catbox Blues. Since you have spayed me, nobody's laid me, I'm all neurotic and tense, you know this. Meowing and mewing, that's all I'm doing, instead of wooing toms on the fence. Well now, don't think I've become bitter because I can't litter. No, but I've lost a few screws. I've got the nobody loves me, nobody feeds me, overflowing Catbox Blues. Nobody loves me, nobody feeds me, overflowing Catbox Blues.
First of all, I'll say that I knew Yvonne since we were 16 and 17, and I was with her. We were the post-war children of the 70s, 60s and 70s, looking for adventure. Everything was Beatle, Maniac, Carnaby Street. There's lots going on, and it was a lovely time to be alive. We travelled all over Europe, France, Spain, and I spent many, many happy times with her in Italy and had so many adventures. I am what I am today because of her. She looked after me like a big sister. It would take weeks to tell of all our adventures that we got up to. Her great sense of humour, her love of life, especially children and animals. She did so much aid work, and came to England on her way to Yugoslavia many times with trying to get the container lorries over the channel. I don't know how she managed to do it. It was amazing. She always looked out for me, and I will always think of her as a truly beautiful and intelligent person. My daughter Lizzie, I remember when I was about 8 or 9, Yvonne came to stay. It was always exciting when she came. She was so different to anyone we had ever met here. She was a wild woman, larger than life, and a big personality and big hair, always singing and talking. She always brought so many things with her because she used to bring little gifts from all over the place, Peru, whistles and all sorts of funny little things which the children loved. She brought her beads upon beads and would sit with us and show us how to make things. She made me a beautiful pair of earrings. She used to make the beads with like the Indians did, and they were really unusual. And when I was about 17, me, Mum and Yvonne went to Italy. We talked, shared food and stories. Yvonne loved life and always said, I love this and I love that. She was eternally young and just wanted adventure. I mean, I went back to the day of Ban the Bombs, and we went on the Aldermaston March and things like that. And it was just such a wonderful time to be in London, in England and our age, because people had hope in the world, which I think we lack now. Everything seems so miserable and there's so many horrible things going on. And Yvonne used to bring joy everywhere she went. It's lovely to have known her. And as I said, I wouldn't be this person I am now if it wasn't for her. We were just ordinary kids from London, and we went out and we saw the world. That was our university. We didn't have degrees and all this sort of thing. We just met people, and we loved it. We did so much in Italy for, you know, the different places that we worked, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.